Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to cover this story even though I haven't done a Meghan and Harry story for a long time, for obvious reasons. As you can tell, I'm so enthusiastic to cover this story right now. So obviously I'm a proponent of free speech. I believe that it should not be stifled. That is our First Amendment right. The same First Amendment right that Harry called bonkers. And this is a classic example of the elites, or people who think they're elites, wanting one rule for them and another for you. So they want you to feel guilty about your one holiday a year, if you're lucky, but they take private jets all over the place. You're contributing towards climate change, but they're fighting against it and deserve all the adulation for trying to save the planet. Never mind the private jets though. They can go on Oprah and disparage their families and lie. They can go on Netflix and do the same thing, but you're not allowed to criticize them. You need to sign a gag order, even if you're 7 or 8 years old. So this story relates to the time that Harry and Meghan went to New York City. Not the time they staged a car chase, no, not that time, but in 2021, where they visited a school in Harlem. Now this school is predominantly attended by disadvantaged children from low socioeconomic areas. And I would guess that majority of those kids are on free school meals, for example. This is a school they attended, wearing thousands of dollars, well Meghan in particular, wearing thousands of dollars worth of jewelry and clothing. Totally out of touch, totally inappropriate, all to plug her book that was used to prop up things, that was used as a door stopper. So it's alleged that they wanted the school to sign a gag order. The Archwell Foundation, ahead of time, sent out this clause that they wanted the school to sign. And this clause included not being able to talk about Meghan and Harry's visit in a negative way, in particular on social media. So let's take a look at the story. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have been accused of trying to gag teachers and students at a New York school they visited 2 years ago. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex visited public school 123 Mahalia Jackson, which is among one of the poorest in New York City, in September 2021. Meghan, 42, was dressed in a $5,000 suit and Cartier jewelry to read to second grade students from her picture book, The Bench, while Harry, 39, sat down with the children. And I remember this, a lot of it was pretty cringe, and it was during the pandemic where we were told that, if we went out into the public, we were risking people's lives. But they're allowed to go into schools. And they did that from very early on in the pandemic too. They were going to schools, trying to create publicity for themselves, trying to do these fake royal tours so they could feel good about themselves, so they can feel that they were still royal. The very life that they claimed they didn't want, they've been trying to recreate ever since. And now they have no problem using children for publicity. They have no problem using veterans for publicity. But advisors from their Archwell Foundation demanded the Harlem school sign a clause which banned anyone from making negative comments, according to The Sun. The request was also raised to any posts on social media, now or in the future. Sources close to the Archwell Foundation have insisted that standard practice was followed. Why would you need to send a gag order to a school? Why would you deem that even necessary? Is it because your conduct is not always great and it warrants criticism sometimes? Is it because of that, or is it because you're just perpetual victims and everyone's out to criticize you? And it makes me laugh when I hear stories about Meghan wanting to go into politics. No one is criticized more than politicians, and rightly so. Yet we're always seeing reports claiming she wants to go into politics. I don't believe it. Somebody who clearly doesn't have thick skin whatsoever has no place in politics. And that's what's disturbing about it. If you give someone like that a little bit of power, that power they have will be used to silence their critics. That power they have will be used to take away people's voices. She complained about not having a voice on Oprah, but she has no problem taking away other people's voices, including 7 and 8-year-olds apparently, including schools. Schools aren't allowed to talk about, we had a visit from such and such today. Now, obviously, the school's going to be professional. The school's not going to be bad-mouthing them on social media. That's not going to happen. But if somebody goes on their personal social media and talks about their experience, it may not have been the most positive experience, they're allowed to do that. So that's what gets me. It's why do you think it's necessary to even have such a clause, to have a school of all places sign these clauses? And who else has to sign these clauses? So if next time we see them at a certain, charitable event with people who come from different walks of life, who are dealing with certain issues, when you go to the World Child Awards, do they have to sign a clause? I'm wondering. Does Archwell send this clause out to any and everybody, regardless of whether it's appropriate or not? When you visit a hospital, does the hospital have to sign a clause to not speak negatively about you? Why would that be necessary? You're going to act up at the hospital? The fact that they think this clause is necessary is more of a reflection on them than anybody else. So she was wearing thousands of dollars worth of jewelry and a $5,000 suit.
But I remember when I was a little girl, sometimes you couldn't see books and see people that looked like yourself. And the idea of representation, to be able to go, that looks like me, or that looks like me. So I wanted to make sure that everyone felt like they were included in this book. So hopefully you're able to turn any page and go, hey, I know someone like that, or that looks like my brother, or that looks like me. I think that's really important for all of us. So I hope you guys like that too. Yes, I think for me, the idea of the bench is, it doesn't have to be a bench, it could be a chair, it could be any place. It's just a special place where you feel comfortable. And I was at the moment witnessing my husband with our son when he had just been born and watching that this could be a place where they could continue to grow and connect and learn. And that could be anywhere. So it's about finding that special place for you that's in your heart, and wherever you find it, to always go and reset and go, this feels good.
How did their visit benefit the school? What was the purpose of it? At the start of the pandemic, they went to one school, I think it was in LA, where the parents weren't even allowed to go into the school. But they were allowed in at the start of the pandemic. While parents were banned from the school because of safety, Harry and Meghan are allowed to go into the school, again, for publicity. How did their visit benefit the school? Now, apparently she donated her book. The kids got a copy of the book. And I thought they brought like vegetables and stuff with them, okay? This visit was documented in a Netflix series. As far as I'm concerned, this visit was just for content. So they can't have people saying negative things about them because it will contradict what they're saying about themselves on Netflix. They can't have people making them look bad because when you watch their Netflix series, it's all about how wonderful they are and how everyone else victimized them. The former Suits actress wore a $5,000 suit, not that you would know it, and Cartier jewelry for the visit at the school, where 95% of children are classed as suffering economic hardship. Freedom of information requests have revealed how the couple's advisors at Archwell tried to protect their image. It also highlights how their team banned 4 British newspapers from attending an event at the World Trade Center, even though it is a publicly owned building. And this is the thing that gets me about this couple. People just think you're talking about Meghan and Harry because you're jealous, or, they're just being targeted because they're so amazing, they're so special, like everybody wants to be like them. So they're just being targeted by haters. It's ridiculous. But this couple, they're dangerous, in my opinion. They're all about elitism. They're all about lording it over people. I don't like that. That's why they're holding on to their titles for dear life. In America. That's why they gave their kids prince and princess titles. In America. They seem power hungry to me. Fame hungry, of course. Very thirsty for fame. And unfortunately, Harry didn't realize that being royalty was above Hollywood, was above, celebrity. He didn't realize that. And he threw that away to be a D-lister, and that's being kind. Really, it's a Z-lister, but, you threw all of that away to be a grifter. So, so thank goodness for the Freedom of Information Act, because we get to see what's really going on. Imagine banning the press from attending a public monument. The press. This couple want to stifle individuals. They want to stifle people on social media. That's why they made up that lie about a coordinated attack. They made up that nonsense to demonize anybody who speaks about them on social media. If you criticize them, you should see my Twitter. I do talk about them on Twitter. Anybody who has a hint of criticism for them is part of a coordinated attack. Such hyperbolic language they use when they're talking about people simply sharing their opinion about their conduct. Why would you think such a clause was necessary? Because you know your conduct is questionable at times, or a lot of the time. Plans for the Sussexes trip began 6 months before the event, and it was managed by Toya Holness, a member of the couple's PR team. Archwell representatives emailed the Department of Education 3 days before the visit to Public School 123. They requested the appearance release, which included the gagging clause, and asked them to run it by their lawyers. I mean, schools have enough. What is the point of this? The school was used for content for Netflix. That's it. What benefit did this school have from their visit? Why is a school dealing with this nonsense? A school doesn't have time for all of this. They really don't. Schools are struggling right now, big time. We've got kids who are struggling with their reading, with their literacy. They're unable to read at grade level. And they don't need to be dealing with this nonsense. They really don't, especially these inner city schools. They don't need to be dealing with this. I really hope that they don't get invited back to the school because it's a lot more bother than it's worth, clearly. Another email from NYC School's press secretary, Danielle Filson, had asked for the best way to get it all agreed, but it is not clear if the Sussexes' request was signed. What? The parties also shared opinions about the language used in the Department of Education press release. Filson wanted to remove reference to the bench and said, just wanted to make it a bit less promotion-y. And there you have it. The whole visit was just to promote the bench, was just to get Netflix content. They don't care whether it's children, they don't care whether it's veterans. They use people for publicity. Clearly, they use people for content. Not very good content, by the way. So they were recently at Kevin Costner's event. You saw that. Very, very cringe. Very, very thirsty for publicity, for fame, as we see. And Meghan was delirious to be among the A-list. They're walking around with bodyguards. Meghan tries to grab the mic. I thought we were going to have another moment like this.
Okay, let's go.
A warm welcome to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
I wonder what she would have said if she was given that mic. Oh my goodness. Thank goodness she wasn't given the mic, but she wanted it. She wanted it. And let's not forget, Harry is a member of the Aspen Institute that has a project seeking to combat misinformation. So they said they were concerned about the avalanche of misinformation. And Harry was to join the Aspen Institute as a commissioner for their Commission on Information Disorder. And he was one of 14 commissioners and 3 co-chairs, and they were to conduct a 6-month study on the state of misinformation and disinformation in America.
It's groups like the National Endowment for Democracy, the Atlantic Council's DFR Lab, Hamilton 68's creator, the Alliance for Securing Democracy, most of which nobody's ever heard of. Then he says the Aspen Institute, receives millions of dollars from both the State Department and other U.S. governments. It held a star-studded confab in Aspen, August 2021, where they all went. They were all there, figuring out how they could censor our speech. And the report ultimately produced was co-authored by somebody named Chris Krebs, who's the founder of DHS's cybersecurity whatever group, Katie Couric, Yoel Roth of Twitter. We've already seen him freaking out over things like January 6th and COVID. Wait for it, Stu. Everything comes full circle. Prince Harry. Prince Harry was a commissioner of this group. Prince Harry, who is on record as saying he thinks the First Amendment is, quote, bonkers, had his hand in putting, Twitter's hand over our mouths, over all of our mouths. There is no end to the nefariousness of this couple and where they use their limited powers to try to silence Americans. And then they go on, here he goes on to talk about how, hold on a second, I want to get the right quote. Twitter sometimes push back on people like Prince Harry and these others, telling them who is not a bot, what can be said and what cannot on things like vaccines or elections. But they say in general, they instantly defer, Twitter did, to sites like PolitiFact, which is funded by the very same names that fund those NGOs who are trying to silence us all in the first place. You see how it works? See how it works? I got to say the Prince Harry thing was not expected, but everything else was.
I didn't see that one coming, no.
This is what they're all about. They don't want people to have a voice. They're the only ones who want to have a voice. And the same people who talk about democracy are very happy silencing people who have dissenting views. So how is that in line with democracy? Democracy is hearing all sides and then making up your mind.
But now that it is all official, Prince Harry, do you have that sense that the combination of the two of you, your different backgrounds, that you together represent something new for the royal family?
I don't know if it's something new. I think it's for me, it's an added member of the family. It's another team player as part of the bigger team. And for all of us, all we want to do is be able to carry out the right engagements, carry out our work, and try and encourage others and the younger generation to be able to see the world in the correct sense, rather than perhaps having a distorted view. Try and encourage others and the younger generation to be able to see the world in the correct sense, rather than perhaps having a distorted view. Try and encourage others and the younger generation to be able to see the world in the correct sense, rather than perhaps having a distorted view.
You hear that? He said he wants people to see the world how they think you should see it. Something like that. That was the first sign of what they're all about. Not a distorted view of the world, but how they want you to see the world. Young people. Interesting. I think we're seeing that play out now. How many years later? 6 years later? We're seeing that play out now. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.